My name is Isabella Blackwood, and despite everything I've achieved, I was never good enough for my family, but that night, everything changed. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to walk away from someone who refused to see your worth. They say success is the best revenge. But I learned that night that sometimes success isn't enough, sometimes. You have to make a choice between your peace and your family's expectations. And sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is simply walking away. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last decade building something my family never thought I could achieve. As Senior Vice President of Mergers and Acquisitions at Blackwater Crown Capital in Charleston, South Carolina, I've orchestrated deals worth over $2 billion. My corner office overlooks the historic district, and my Porsche 911 Turbo S sits in the executive parking garage. By any measure, I should have earned my family's respect by now, but respect isn't something the Sterling family gives freely. It's something they withhold like a carrot on a stick, always just out of reach. My father, Harrison Sterling, built his fortune in commercial real estate development. He owns half the waterfront properties in Charleston and has the mayor on speed dial. Growing up in our antebellum mansion on South Battery Street, I learned early that love in the Sterling family came with conditions. Success wasn't celebrated, it was expected. Failure wasn't forgiven, it was weaponized. My older brother Marcus was the golden child, star quarterback in high school, Harvard MBA. Now running Sterling Development alongside my father, he could do no wrong in their eyes, even when he crashed his Ferrari into a fountain during his sophomore year at college. My father just laughed and bought him a new one. But me? I was the experiment, the girl who was supposed to marry well and produce grandchildren, not earn a finance degree from Wharton, and outperform most of the men. In my industry, every achievement was met with a qualified compliment. That's nice, dear, but when are you going to find a good man? Well, it's different for women in business. I suppose that's impressive. For someone your age, the turning point came 3 years ago when I single-handedly saved a deal that would have cost my firm $40 million. The client was pulling out due to regulatory concerns, and I spent 72 hours straight restructuring the entire acquisition to comply with federal guidelines. When we closed, my managing partner called it the most brilliant financial maneuvering he'd seen in 20 years. My father's response? That's nice, sweetheart. Marcus just bought another building downtown. That night, I stopped calling home every week. I stopped attending every family dinner. I started building my own life, separate from their approval or disapproval, but family has a way of pulling you back in, especially when there's a wedding involved. The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock with gold foil lettering. My niece Sophia, Marcus's daughter, was getting married to some trust fund kid from Savannah. The wedding was being held at Magnolia Plantation, one of the most exclusive venues in Charleston, no expense spared, naturally. I stared at the invitation. For a long time, weighing my options, I could decline, send a nice gift, and avoid the inevitable drama. But Sophia had always been different from the rest of the family. She'd visited me in New York during college, genuinely interested in my work. She'd even asked for advice about her own career in environmental law. More importantly, I'd promised her something special for her wedding day 2 years ago. During one of our rare heart-to-heart conversations, she'd mentioned her dream of having her wedding featured in Southern Living magazine, not for the publicity, but because her late grandmother had always dreamed of seeing a Sterling wedding in the pages of the magazine she'd read religiously. I'd made some calls. As it turned out, the food and wine editor at Southern Living was a client of mine. I'd helped her husband's restaurant group navigate a complex acquisition deal, and she owed me a favor, a big one. The plan was simple. I would arrange for a surprise feature on Sophia's wedding, complete with a professional photo shoot and a full spread in next month's issue. The magazine would send their team discreetly, and I would reveal the surprise during my toast at the reception to make it happen. I'd also arranged for the wedding to be catered by James Whitmore, the most sought-after chef in the Southeast. He'd just opened his second restaurant in Charleston, and getting him to cater a private event was nearly impossible. But I'd financed his expansion, and he jumped at the chance to repay the favor. The gift was perfect. It was personal, thoughtful, and would give Sophia something she'd treasure forever. It was also expensive. I'd spent nearly $50,000 between the magazine feature and the catering upgrade. But Sophia was worth it. IRESVPED, yes, and booked a suite at the Ocean House, the most exclusive hotel in Charleston. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. The morning of the wedding, I drove down from my apartment in Charlotte. In my Porsche, the South Carolina coastline stretching endlessly beside me, I'd chosen my outfit carefully. A sophisticated navy dress from Gabriella Hearst, Louboutin heels, and my grandmother's pearl necklace. Elegant but not attention-grabbing. The goal was to blend in, not upstage the bride. I arrived at Magnolia Plantation 2 hours before the ceremony, wanting to check in with the catering team and make sure everything was perfect for the surprise. The plantation was breathtaking, sprawling gardens, ancient oak trees draped in Spanish moss, and a mansion that belonged in a movie. My father had chosen well. The first person I saw was Marcus. Directing the setup crew like a general commanding troops, he spotted me across the lawn and jogged over, his face breaking into the practiced smile he'd perfected in business school. "Vivian, you made it," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a photo opportunity than genuine affection. "Dad wasn't sure you'd come." "I wouldn't miss Sophia's wedding," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "She looks beautiful. Is she nervous?" "Terrified." Marcus laughed. "But happy. You know how she is. She's been planning this day since she was 12. I smiled, thinking of the surprise I had waiting. "She's going to love it." Marcus gave me a curious look. "Love what?" "The wedding, the day, all of it." Before he could ask more questions, I excused myself and walked toward the main house. I needed to find James Whitmore and confirm the final details. I found him in the kitchen, a temporary setup in the plantation's carriage house. He was plating appetizers with the precision of a surgeon, steam moving around him like a well-choreographed dance. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Vivian?" "There's my favorite venture capitalist," he said, wiping his hands on his apron. "This is going to be spectacular. I've got the tasting menu from the restaurant, plus some Southern classics for the older guests. The bride is going to be thrilled. It's perfect, James. Thank you for making this happen." "Are you kidding?" "After what you did for my expansion, I owe you a dozen weddings. Plus, I love surprising families who think they know everything about fine dining." I was about to respond when I heard my father's voice behind me. "Vivian, there you are." I turned to find Harrison Sterling standing in the doorway, wearing a custom tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's cars. He looked exactly as I remembered: silver hair, perfectly styled, commanding presence, and the kind of smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Hello, Father. I was wondering when you'd show up. Marcus said you were lurking around the kitchen." His tone was light, but I caught the edge underneath. "I hope you're not causing problems for the catering staff." James stepped forward, clearly sensing the tension. "Actually, Mr. Sterling, your daughter has been incredibly helpful. She's the one who arranged for the kitchen is no place for guests." My father interrupted, not even looking at James. "Vivian, come. People are starting to arrive, and I want you to meet some of the family friends." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I'd had as a child when I'd disappointed him, but I wasn't a child anymore. "I'll be out in a moment," I said calmly. I was just checking on the final details. His eyes narrowed slightly. "What final details?" "Nothing important, just making sure everything is perfect for Sophia." He studied my face for a long moment, then shrugged. "Don't take too long. The ceremony starts in an hour." After he left, James whistled low. "That's your father?" "Yikes, he's complicated. He's an ass, but don't worry, wait until he tastes my bourbon-glazed short ribs. I'll win him over." I wished I shared his confidence. The wedding ceremony was everything Sophia had dreamed of. She looked radiant in her grandmother's vintage lace dress, and her groom couldn't stop smiling. I sat in the third row with distant cousins and family friends, watching as my father walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes. For a moment, I remembered why I loved my family despite everything. These were the people who'd taught me to ride horses, who'd attended my school plays, who'd celebrated my college graduation. The dysfunction was real, but so was the love underneath it. The reception was held in the plantation's grand ballroom, with French doors opening onto the garden. The Southern living photographer was there, disguised as a wedding guest, capturing. Every moment, everything was going according to plan. I was admiring the table settings when I noticed something odd. Every table had elegant china plates, crystal glasses, and silver cutlery, except for one setting mine where everyone else had. Fine china, I had a plastic plate, the kind you'd use for a children's party or a picnic. The water glass was plastic too, and the cutlery was disposable. I stared at it for a long moment. Feeling a familiar burn of humiliation around me, guests were finding their seats, chatting and laughing. No one else seemed to notice the single plastic place setting among the sea of elegant china. Maya Patricia, my father's sister, appeared at my elbow. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about that. There was a mix-up with the catering count. And we ran short on the good dishes, but you don't mind, do you? You're so successful and independent. I'm sure you understand." The lie was so transparent, it was almost insulting. This wasn't a mix-up. This was a message. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "It's not about the plate, it's about celebrating." "Sophia," Patricia beamed. "Exactly. You always were the practical one." I took my seat, hyper-aware of the plastic plate in front of me. The woman to my right, someone's wife from Savannah, gave me a curious look. "Are you on a special diet?" she asked, eyeing my disposable cutlery. "Something like that," I replied. The humiliation was calculated and public, my father's handiwork, without a doubt, even at my niece's wedding. He'd found a way to put me in my place, but he'd miscalculated, because this wasn't just any wedding. This was a wedding being catered by James Whitmore, one of the most respected chefs in the Southeast, a chef who knew exactly who I was and what I'd done for his career. The first course was served, James's signature butternut squash soup with truffle oil and microgreens. I watched as servers in crisp white uniforms placed elegant bowls in front of each guest. When my server approached, I expected another plastic bowl instead. She placed a beautiful porcelain bowl in front of me, different from everyone else's. This one was edged in gold, with a small card tucked beside it. The card read, "For our special guest, with compliments from the chef." I looked up to find James himself approaching my table, his chef's jacket pristine, his smile warm and genuine. "Miss Blackwood," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet table. "I wanted to personally thank you for making tonight possible. Your support for my restaurant group has been invaluable." The conversation at nearby tables began to quiet as people turned to look. James continued, his voice pitched to carry without seeming like he was performing. "I don't know if everyone knows what an honor it is to have Isabella Blackwood here tonight. She's one of the most brilliant financial minds in the Southeast. Her firm, Blackwater Crown Capital, has revolutionized how we think about restaurant acquisitions." He gestured to the bowl in front of me. "This is from my private collection, hand-thrown by a ceramicist in Asheville. I reserve it for my most valued partners." The silence at my table was deafening. Patricia's mouth was slightly open. The woman from Savannah was staring at me with new interest. "Chef Whitmore," I said carefully, "you're too kind." "Not at all, in fact. I have a special tasting menu prepared. Just for you, my sommelier will be pairing each course with wines from your personal collection." "Wait, my personal collection?" James winked at me. "I took the liberty of having a few bottles sent over from your cellar. The 2015 Screaming Eagle Cabernet should pair beautifully with the beef course. I didn't own a 2015 Screaming Eagle Cabernet. A bottle of that wine cost more than most people's monthly salary, but I played along, nodding as if this was perfectly normal. "That sounds perfect, chef." "Excellent. I'll check on you throughout the evening, please. Let me know if there's anything else you need." As he walked away, I felt the weight of every stare at my table. The plastic plate had been quietly removed while James was speaking, replaced with the same elegant china everyone else had. Patricia leaned over, her voice hushed. "I had no idea you were so successful. There's a lot you don't know about me." Aunt Patricia, Across the ballroom, I caught my father's eye. He was watching me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between confusion and concern. The evening continued with James's team treating me like visiting royalty. Each course came with a personal explanation from the chef or his sous chef. The sommelier spent 20 minutes discussing wine pairings with me, clearly impressed by my supposed expertise. The other guests at my table hung on every word. The woman from Savannah, who introduced herself as Margaret, asked about my work with obvious fascination. "So you actually finance restaurant acquisitions?" she asked. "That sounds incredibly complicated." "It can be. You have to understand not just the financial side, but the hospitality industry, market trends, consumer behavior. It's part numbers, part psychology." "And you work with Chef Whitmore regularly?" I took a sip of the wine that definitely wasn't from my collection. "James is brilliant. He understands that expanding a restaurant isn't just about opening new locations. It's about maintaining the culture and quality that made the original successful." "Fascinating, Patricia. You never mentioned that Vivian was in finance." Patricia looked uncomfortable. "Well, she's always been career-focused." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of a microphone being tested. My father stood at the head table, preparing to make a toast. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention." The room quieted as all eyes turned to him. He looked every inch the patriarch, confident, commanding, at ease with being the center of attention. 30 years ago, I held my son Marcus for the first time, and I dreamed of the day I'd walk his daughter down the aisle. Today, that dream came true. He paused for the expected applause, then continued. "Sophia, you've grown into a remarkable young woman. You're intelligent, kind, and you've chosen a wonderful partner in David. Your grandmother would be so proud." More applause. I found myself smiling despite everything. This was the father I remembered from my childhood, warm, proud, capable of genuine emotion. Now, I'd like to invite anyone who'd like to share a memory or offer wishes for the happy couple to come forward. This was my moment. I stood, smoothing my dress, and walked toward the microphone. The room was still buzzing with conversation as I took my place at the front. "Hello, everyone. I'm Isabella Blackwood, Sophia's aunt." I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Some I recognized from childhood, others were new. All of them were watching me with polite attention. "Sophia, you've always been special to me. When you were 12, you told me you wanted to be a lawyer who helped save the environment. When you were 16, you said you wanted to have a wedding that would make your grandmother proud. And when you were 22, you said you wanted to marry someone who would love you for exactly who you are." Sophia was crying now, her new husband holding her hand. "I'm here tonight because you've achieved all of those dreams. You're a brilliant environmental lawyer. You're surrounded by people who love you. And you've married a man who clearly adores you." I reached into my purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. "But there's something else, something I've been working on for the past 2 years. The room had gone completely quiet now. Even the servers had stopped moving. Your grandmother subscribed to Southern Living magazine for 40 years. She used to cut out pictures of beautiful weddings and keep them in a scrapbook. She always said she hoped one day a sterling wedding would be featured in those pages." Sophia's eyes widened. I could see the realization dawning on her face. "Tonight, that dream comes true. The photographer you've been seeing all evening isn't just a guest. He's from Southern Living magazine. Your wedding is going to be featured in next month's issue, with a full spread and an article about your commitment to environmental law." The room erupted. Sophia burst into tears. Her new husband looked stunned, and guests began applauding. I could see my father's face in the crowd, his expression unreadable. But that's not all. I continued once the noise died down. "The meal you've been enjoying tonight was prepared by James Whitmore, one of the finest chefs in the Southeast. I arranged for him to cater your wedding as my gift to you." More applause, louder this time. James appeared at the edge of the crowd, grinning and waving. "Sophia, your grandmother always said that the best gifts come from the heart. This comes from mine with all my love and hopes for your happiness." I handed her the envelope, which contained all the documentation for the magazine feature and a gift certificate for a weekend at James's restaurant. As I walked back to my table, the applause continued. "But I wasn't paying attention to that. I was watching my father's face, seeing the moment when he realized what had just happened. His daughter, the one he'd given a plastic plate to just given his granddaughter, a gift worth more than most people's annual salary. In front of 200 guests, including some of the most influential people in Charleston society, the rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and curious questions. Guests who'd barely acknowledged me earlier suddenly wanted to know all about my work, my success, my life in Charlotte. The woman from Savannah, Margaret, turned out to be married to a restaurant owner who'd been trying to expand to Charleston. "You simply must give me your card," she insisted. "Richard has been looking for the right financial partner for months." I handed her my business card, watching her eyes widen as she read the title. Senior Vice President, Mergers and Acquisitions. My goodness, Vivian, I had no idea. "There's a lot people don't know about me," I replied, echoing my earlier words to Patricia. My father appeared at my elbow as the evening was winding down. "Vivian, a word?" I followed him to a quiet corner of the ballroom, away from the remaining guests. "That was quite a speech," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Sophia deserves something special." $50,000 worth of special? I met his eyes steadily. "She's worth it." He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. "I didn't know you were so successful. You never asked." I suppose I assumed that I was playing at business, that it was a phase, that I'd eventually come to my senses and settle down. His silence was answer enough. "I've been Senior Vice President at Blackwater Crown for 3 years. Father, I've closed deals worth over $2 billion. I own a penthouse in Charlotte, a beach house in Kiowa, and a wine collection that's worth more than most people's houses." "Then why didn't you ever say anything?" I almost laughed. "When?" "During the dinners where you talked about Marcus's latest acquisition? During the phone calls where you asked when I was going to give you grandchildren? During the family gatherings where you introduced me as our daughter who lives in Charlotte?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "I didn't realize you didn't want to realize. It was easier to see me as the disappointment, the daughter who chose career over family." "That's not fair, isn't it? You gave me a plastic plate tonight, Father, at your granddaughter's wedding, in front of 200 people because you wanted to remind me of my place in this family." He opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it again. "The thing is," I continued, "I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your recognition or your acceptance. I'm successful, I'm happy, and I'm proud of what I've built. Then why did you come tonight?" "For Sophia, because she asked me to, because she's always seen me for who I am, not who you wanted me to be." We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of 30 years of misunderstanding between us. "I'm proud of you," he said finally. "I should have said that a long time ago." "Yes, you should have. Can we try again? Start over?" I looked at him for a long moment, this man who'd shaped so much of my life, who'd driven me to succeed partly out of love and partly out of spite. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I've spent so many years trying to earn your approval that I'm not sure I remember how to just be your daughter. I'd like to try, if you're willing. We'll see." I didn't give him an answer that night. Instead, I said goodbye to Sophia and David, promised to visit them soon, and drove back to my hotel. The next morning, I packed my things and started the drive back to Charlotte. But halfway there, I pulled over at a rest stop and sat in my car, thinking about the conversation with my father. For 30 years, I'd been fighting a war one couldn't win. No matter how successful I became, how much I achieved, how far I climbed, it would never be enough to erase the years of feeling like I wasn't good enough. The plastic plate had been the final straw. But it had also been a gift. It had shown me clearly and undeniably that nothing I did would ever change how my father saw me. And that realization was strangely freeing. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found my father's number. I stared at it for a long time, then typed out a message. "Thank you for last night. It helped me understand something important. I don't need your approval to be successful, and I don't need your acceptance to be happy. I've spent 30 years trying to prove myself to you, and I'm tired of it. I'm proud of who I am and what I've built. I hope someday you can be proud of me too, but I'm not going to wait for that anymore. I'm going to live my life for me, not for your expectations. Maybe that's the best gift you could have given me." I hit send before I could change my mind. His response came an hour later. "I understand. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you really are. I love you, Isabella." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a kind of peace. The war was over, not because anyone had won, but because I'd chosen to stop fighting. 6 months later, I was featured on the cover of Charlotte Business Journal as one of the city's most influential women in finance. The article detailed my success at Blackwater Crown and my reputation as one of the Southeast's most skilled negotiators. My father sent me a copy of the magazine with a note. "I'm proud of you. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." I kept the note on my desk, not as a trophy or vindication, but as a reminder of the choice I'd made. I'd chosen to define my own success, to build my own life, to stop waiting for validation from people who might never give it. Sophia called me regularly, updating me on her work and her marriage. The Southern Living feature had been beautiful, and she framed the article to hang in her office. She'd also started referring environmental law cases to other attorneys. In her firm, building a reputation as someone who could handle complex corporate environmental issues. "I've been thinking about starting my own practice," she told me during one of our calls, "but I'm not sure I'm ready for the business side of things. What kind of help do you need?" "Someone who understands how to structure a business, how to secure funding, how to manage growth, someone who's done it before." I smiled. "I might know someone." "Really?" "Who?" "Me." We met for lunch the following week, and I walked her through the process of starting a law practice. By the end of the conversation, we'd outlined a business plan that would allow her to focus on environmental law while building a sustainable practice. "I can't afford to pay you consultant fees," she said, looking embarrassed. "Who said anything about fees?" "Your family. But this is business." Business and family don't have to be mutually exclusive. Sometimes the best partnerships are built on trust and shared values. That conversation led to others. Sophia introduced me to colleagues in the environmental law field, and I began consulting for law firms looking to expand or restructure. It was challenging work, combining my financial expertise with my growing understanding of the legal industry. Within a year, I'd helped launch 3 environmental law practices and consulted on 2 major law firm mergers. The work was fulfilling in a way that traditional corporate finance had never been. 2 years after Sophia's wedding, I received another invitation. From my family, this time, it was for my father's 65th birthday party, a black tie affair at the country club, with 150 guests expected. I almost declined. The wounds from the wedding had healed, but the scar tissue was still tender. But Marcus called me personally. "Dad's been different since Sophia's wedding," he said. "He talks about you all the time, about your success, your business. He's proud of you, Isabella. It's a little late for that, don't you think?" "Maybe, but he's trying, and honestly, I've been thinking about what happened that night, the plastic plate thing. I knew about it, and I didn't stop it." "That surprised me. You knew?" "Patricia told me. She thought it was funny. A way to keep you humble," she said. I should have said something. "Why didn't you?" "Because I was jealous," he said quietly. "You were always smarter than me, more driven. I was afraid that if Dad really saw how successful you were, he'd realize I was just coasting on his reputation." "Marcus, I know it's not an excuse, but I want to make it right. Will you come, please?" I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I decided to go, not for my father or for Marcus, but for myself. I wanted to see if I could be in that room with those people and feel nothing but peace. The party was elegant, as expected. My father looked distinguished in his tuxedo, holding court with business associates and old friends. When he saw me, his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Isabella, I'm so glad you came." "Happy birthday, Father." "Thank you, you look beautiful." I was wearing a dress I'd made specifically for the occasion, a deep emerald green that complemented my eyes. It made me feel powerful and elegant. "I have something." "For you," I said, handing him an envelope. He opened it carefully and pulled out a newspaper clipping. It was the announcement of my promotion to managing director at Blackwater Crown. "Effective the following month. I wanted you to be the first to know," I said. "I'll be overseeing the entire Southeast region." His eyes filled with tears. "Isabella, I'm so proud of you. Thank you. I know I haven't always been the father you deserved. I know I made mistakes. We all make mistakes, Father. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy? Really happy?" I thought about the question seriously. "Yes, I am. I'm proud of what I've built. I love my work, and I'm surrounded by people who value me for who I am. That's all I ever wanted for you." "I know. It just took us a while to figure out how to get there." He hugged me then, and for the first time in years, it felt genuine. The dinner was held in the country club's main dining room, with round tables set with crystal and silver. I was seated at the family table. Between Marcus and his wife, with my father and stepmother across from me, the conversation was easy. Comfortable in a way it hadn't been for years. Marcus told stories about his latest development project, and I shared details about the firm's expansion plans. My father listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about the business. When it came time for toasts, my father stood and raised his glass. 65 years ago, I came into this world with nothing but potential. Over the years, I've been blessed with success, with love, with family, but my greatest achievement isn't the buildings I've built or the money I've made. It's the children I've raised. He looked directly at me. My daughter Isabella has accomplished something I never did. She built her success entirely on her own merit. Without family connections or inherited advantages, she's earned every promotion, every deal, every achievement through her own talent and hard work. The room was quiet, hanging on his words. I'm proud of the woman she's become, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see it clearly. Isabella, you've always been extraordinary. I was just too stubborn to admit it. He raised his glass. To Isabella Blackwood, managing director of Blackwater Crown Capital, and the finest example of what determination and intelligence can achieve. The room erupted in applause. I felt tears in my eyes, but they were good tears. The validation I'd spent 30 years seeking was finally here, but I realized I didn't need it anymore. I'd already validated myself after the dinner. As guests were beginning to leave, I found myself standing on the country club's terrace, looking out at the Charleston harbor. The lights of the city reflected on the water, and I could hear the distant sound of music from the dining room. "Vivian?" I turned to find a young woman approaching, someone I didn't recognize. She was maybe 25, with short dark hair and intelligent eyes. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sarah Chen, and I just graduated from the MBA program at Duke. I've been following your career for the past year." "Following my career? You're something of a legend in finance circles. They call you the deal whisperer because you can save acquisitions that everyone else thinks are dead." I smiled. "That's very flattering." I was wondering, would you be willing to meet for coffee sometime? "I'm looking for a mentor, someone who can help me navigate the industry." I studied her face, seeing something of myself at her age, ambitious, determined, probably facing skepticism from people who didn't think she belonged in finance. "I'd be happy to," I said, pulling out my business card. "Call my assistant and set up a meeting." "Thank you so much. This means everything to me." As she walked away, I realized something had come full circle. I'd spent so many years fighting to prove myself, to earn recognition, to climb the ladder. Now I was in a position to help others do the same. 5 years later, I was giving a speech at the Women in Finance Conference in Atlanta. The ballroom was packed with 500 women from across the Southeast, all at different stages of their careers. 10 years ago, I told them, I was given a plastic plate at a family wedding. It was meant to humiliate me, to remind me that no matter what I achieved, I would never be good enough in some people's eyes. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. That plastic plate was a gift. Though I didn't realize it at the time, showed me that I was seeking validation from people who would never give it. And it freed me to stop trying. I paused, looking out at the faces in the crowd, some young, some older, all of them fighting their own battles for recognition and respect. Success isn't about proving yourself to people who don't believe in you. It's about building something meaningful, something that reflects your values and your vision. It's about creating opportunities for others, lifting as you climb, and defining success on your own terms. I saw nods throughout the audience. Women who understood exactly what I was talking about. Today, I run the Southeast division of one of the most prestigious investment firms in the country. I mentor young professionals, I sit on 3 nonprofit boards, and I've helped launch dozens of businesses owned by women and minorities. None of that happened because I proved myself to my family. It happened because I stopped trying to after the speech. I was approached by dozens of women wanting to share their own stories of plastic plates and glass ceilings, of family members who dismissed their achievements, of fighting for recognition in rooms where they were the only woman. But I also heard stories of triumph, of women who'd started their own firms, who'd broken through barriers, who'd created their own definitions of success. Women who'd learned the same lesson I had, that the most powerful revenge is building a life so fulfilling that you no longer need revenge at all. That night, back in my hotel room, I called Sophia. She was now a partner at her own environmental law firm, representing major corporations and sustainability initiatives. The business plan we developed together had evolved into something neither of us had imagined. I saw the video of your speech, she said. It was incredible. You had the whole room crying. It felt good to share the story, to help other women realize they're not alone. You know what's funny? I was thinking about that night, about my wedding. I never thanked you properly for what you did. You thanked me plenty. No, I mean really thanked you. Not just for the magazine feature or the catering, for showing me what it looks like to find success on your own terms, for teaching me that family doesn't have to mean accepting less than you deserve. I felt tears in my eyes. Sophia, I mean it. Watching you that night, seeing how you handled grandfather's attempt to humiliate you, seeing how you turned it into something powerful, it changed how I think about everything. Your grandfather and I have made peace with each other. I know, and I'm glad. But you didn't need his approval to be extraordinary. You were already extraordinary. You just needed to believe it. After we hung up, I sat by the window, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from that humiliating moment with the plastic plate to this hotel room, fresh from inspiring 500 women to believe in themselves. The revenge I imagined that night proving my father wrong, forcing him to acknowledge my success, had been so much smaller than what actually happened. The real revenge was building a life I loved. Surrounded by people who valued me, doing work that mattered, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Watched your speech online. So proud of you, love, Dad. I smiled and typed back, thank you, love you too. A year later, I was back in Charleston for another family gathering. This time it was Marcus's son's college graduation, the same cast of characters, the same elegant setting. But everything felt different. I was seated at the family table, treated as the successful businesswoman I'd become. No plastic plates, no subtle slights, no attempts to diminish my achievements. The shift was complete during the dinner. My teenage great niece, Sophia's younger sister Emma, approached me. Aunt Vivian, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. I'm trying to decide what to study in college. Everyone keeps telling me I should do something practical like teaching or nursing, but I really want to study computer science. I set down my fork and gave her my full attention. Why computer science? I love coding. I love solving problems. I want to create apps that help people. Maybe start my own tech company someday. That sounds amazing. What's stopping you? Everyone says it's too hard for girls, that I'll never be taken seriously, that I should have a backup plan. I thought about myself at her age, listening to similar advice about choosing a suitable career for a woman. Emma, can I tell you something? When I was your age, people told me finance was a man's field. They said I'd never make it, that I should find something more appropriate for a woman. But you did make it. I did, but not because I ignored the challenges. I made it because I prepared twice as hard, worked twice as long, and never let anyone else define what I was capable of. She leaned forward, hanging on every word. If you want to study computer science, study computer science. If you want to start a tech company, start a tech company, but do it because you love it, not because you're trying to prove something to people who don't believe in you. What if I fail? Then you'll learn something valuable and try again. The only real failure is not trying at all. She smiled, and I saw the same determination in her eyes that I'd felt at her age. Will you help me? I mean, with the business side of things? When I'm ready? Emma, I would be honored to help you build whatever you want to build. 2 years later, I received an invitation that made me smile. Emma had been accepted to MIT for computer science, and the family was throwing a celebration party, but this time, I wasn't just invited, I was asked to be the guest of honor. The party was at my father's house, the same mansion where I'd grown up feeling like I never quite fit in. But now, as I walked through the rooms filled with family and friends, I felt different. I belonged here not because I'd earned their approval, but because I'd learned to approve of myself. Emma found me on the terrace, looking out at the same harbor view I'd loved as a child. Aunt Vivian, I wanted to give you something. She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo from the night of Sophia's wedding, a picture of me giving my speech, with James Whitmore in the background, smiling proudly. I asked Mom for this photo years ago, Emma said. I keep it on my desk when I'm studying. It reminds me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be yourself. Even when everyone else wants you to be someone else. I felt tears in my eyes. Emma, that's beautiful. I have something else for you too. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video. It was a TED Talk she'd given at a youth conference, titled The Power of Defining Your Own Success. You inspired this, she said. Your story about the plastic plate, about choosing to build your own life instead of fighting for other people's approval. I've told that story to dozens of girls who are thinking about giving up on their dreams. As I watched the video, I realized something profound had happened. The humiliation I'd experienced that night at Sophia's wedding had been transformed into something powerful, something that was now inspiring a new generation of young women to believe in themselves. 5 years later, I was sitting in the boardroom of Blackwater Crown Capital, preparing for the most important meeting of my career. The firm's founding partners had approached me about taking over as CEO when the current chief executive retired. Vivian, said Jonathan Blackwater, the firm's founder, you've transformed this company. The Southeast Division is now our most profitable region, and you've built a reputation that opens doors we didn't even know existed. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm honored by your confidence. There's something else, said Margaret Crown, his business partner. We want to rename the firm. Blackwater Crown Blackwood, your name on the door, your vision leading the company. I stared at them, speechless. My name on the door of one of the most prestigious investment firms in the Southeast. The girl who'd been given a plastic plate was now being offered the keys to the kingdom. I need to think about it. I said finally, of course, take all the time you need. That evening, I drove to Charleston. I needed to see the city where it all began, to walk through the streets where I'd grown up feeling like I wasn't enough. I found myself at Magnolia Plantation, the site of Sophia's wedding. The gardens were closed to the public, but I knew the security guard. I'd financed his daughter's restaurant the year before. Ms. Blackwood, what brings you here so late? Just some thinking to do, Henry. Would it be okay if I walked around the gardens for a few minutes? Of course, take all the time you need. I walked through the same gardens where I'd been humiliated 7 years earlier. The oak trees were still draped in Spanish moss. The same flowers bloomed in the same beds. But everything was different now. I pulled out my phone and called my father. Vivian, is everything okay? It's late. I'm fine, Dad. I just wanted to tell you something. I've been offered the CEO position at Blackwater Crown. They want to put my name on the firm. Silence on the other end. Dad? I'm here. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So incredibly proud. I know, and I wanted to thank you. Thank me. For what? For from the plastic plate. Vivian, I mean it. That night forced me to stop seeking your approval and start building my own life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so sorry about that night. I know you are, but I'm grateful for it. It taught me that the most powerful revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's building something so meaningful that their opinion becomes irrelevant. We talked for another hour. Father and daughter equals now in a way we'd never been before. 6 months later, I was standing in the same ballroom where Sophia's wedding reception had been held, but this time I was the guest of honor. The Charleston Business Council was presenting me with their Lifetime Achievement Award, and 300 of the city's most influential leaders were there to celebrate. The irony wasn't lost on me. 7 years earlier, I'd been given a plastic plate in this very room. Now I was being honored as one of Charleston's most successful business leaders. My father gave the introduction, his voice filled with pride as he listed my achievements. When he finished, the room erupted in applause as I approached the podium. 7 years ago, I began. I attended a family wedding in this very room. I was given a plastic plate while everyone else had fine china. It was meant to be a reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. The room was silent, hanging on my words. That plastic plate was the greatest gift I ever received. It freed me from the need to prove myself to people who would never see my worth. It allowed me to build a life based on my own values, my own definition of success. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all of them listening intently. I stand before you tonight as the CEO of Blackwood, a firm that's helped launch hundreds of businesses and create thousands of jobs. But more importantly, I stand before you as someone who learned that the most powerful revenge is building a life so fulfilling that you no longer need revenge at all. The applause was thunderous. In the front row, I saw my father wiping away tears. Next to him sat Emma, now a sophomore at AMIT, beaming with pride. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and celebrated, I found myself on the same terrace where I'd stood years earlier, processing the humiliation of that plastic plate. Emma joined me, now a confident young woman who just launched her first app. Aunt Vivian, I have something to tell you. What's that, sweetheart? I'm starting a nonprofit. It's called Plastic Plates, a mentorship program for young women who've been told they don't belong in male-dominated fields. I smiled, feeling the circle complete itself once again. I think that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I wanted to ask if you'd be on the board of directors. Emma, I would be honored. As we stood there looking out at the harbor, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment, from humiliation to triumph, from seeking approval to creating my own worth, from plastic plates to corporate boardrooms. The revenge I'd imagined that night proving my family wrong, forcing them to acknowledge my success, had been so much smaller than what actually happened. The real revenge was this: building a life I loved, surrounded by people who valued me, doing work that mattered, and inspiring others to do the same. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving yourself right. Have you ever had to choose between peace and family? Sometimes the most powerful revenge is walking away. If my story resonated with you, hit like, subscribe to Silent Revenge, and share your truth in the comments, because sometimes justice whispers and still echoes forever.